She was forced to sit alone at her sister's wedding, until a single dad said, "Act like you're with me." The story begins with the kind of moment people don't forget easily. A bright, golden daytime wedding where music floated like soft petals in the air, families laughed under the open sky, and joy was supposed to be the only emotion present. Yet there she was, Mira Holden, sitting completely alone at a white round table at the farthest corner of the garden, staring at the celebration she was supposed to feel part of. It was her younger sister's wedding, a day she had imagined attending with pride, but instead she felt like an outsider in the one place she should have belonged the most. The guests were grouped in small circles, smiling, chatting, raising toasts, while her own family had pushed her out to a lonely table simply because they didn't want her walking around alone after her long-term fiancé, the man she had loved for 5 years, abandoned her just 3 months before the wedding. The humiliation still clawed at her chest. She tried to swallow the ache rising inside her, but it felt like every ray of daylight exposed her loneliness even more. She wished for the wind to blow away the heaviness, for the music to drown the whispers, and for her heart to forget how badly it hurt. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that touch the heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness Stories. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive. As the sun glimmered across the white decorations and soft fabric draped over the chairs, Mira glanced at her family from afar. They looked happy, radiant even, with no space for the daughter they believed brought awkwardness to the event. She could hear their earlier words echo in her ears. "It's better if you sit there for now, Mira. People will ask questions. Just stay out of the way a little." It didn't matter that she had spent months helping plan the wedding, or that she had been the one calming everyone when deadlines got stressful. It didn't matter that she loved her sister, Alina, enough to sacrifice sleep, money, and time to make this day perfect. The empty chair beside her felt like a reminder of every broken piece of her life. She watched the couples take pictures, the bridesmaids adjusting Alina's dress, the sunlight catching the bride's veil like a halo, and she felt both proud and painfully invisible at the same time. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to shield her heart from breaking any further. That on the other side of the garden, a tall man with slightly messy chestnut hair and a gentle expression was trying to balance a toddler on his hip while reaching for a drink on the refreshment table. His name was Rowan Keene, a single dad who had been invited because he worked with the groom, and this wedding was one of the few outings he had agreed to attend since losing his wife 2 years ago. His little daughter, Kira, was squirming in his arms, refusing to drink water, refusing to sit still, refusing everything except the idea of running toward the flower decorations. Rowan was exhausted, still learning how to navigate life as both mother and father, and still unsure if he belonged in events where couples filled every seat. When Kira finally wiggled out of his grasp and toddled straight toward the flower arch, he chased after her, hoping she wouldn't trip over the long satin ribbons dancing in the breeze. While searching for her among the tables, he paused when he noticed a woman sitting entirely alone, her dress neat and beautiful, but her eyes dimmed like someone quietly carrying too many unspoken stories. There was something about her. Maybe the way she held herself, trying not to show how much she hurt, or maybe the flicker of vulnerability she couldn't hide, that made him look a moment longer. Then he spotted Kira again, this time marching directly toward the lonely woman's table, her little hands covered in petals she had grabbed from the decoration bowls. Before he could stop her, Kira reached Myra's table, giggling as she dropped the stolen petals on Myra's lap. Mira blinked in surprise, then slowly smiled, the first real smile she had managed all day. Rowan reached them, slightly breathless, apologizing in rushed movements. But something unexpected happened. When he looked at Mira, she seemed startled that someone was talking to her like she mattered. The chair beside her was empty. The table was meant to seat 8 guests, yet only one was present. He understood instantly. No one sat alone at weddings unless the reason was painful. He felt something tug inside him. Not pity, but recognition. A quiet voice inside him whispered that he knew what loneliness looked like, and she was wearing it like an unwanted accessory. Without planning it, and without giving himself time to reconsider, he gently leaned toward her and told her she didn't have to sit alone. He gestured to Kira, who had already climbed onto the chair beside Mira, and told her softly to act like she was with them, like they were her table. Mira froze for a moment, overwhelmed. No one had shown her this level of compassion in months. She didn't know whether to accept it or to stand and leave before she grew too hopeful. But when she saw Kira place a petal in front of her, babbling happily as if she had known her forever, a warmth rose inside her chest so unexpectedly that it almost brought tears to her eyes. Rowan settled into the empty chair, offering her the comfort of presence without expectations. Mira tried to hide her trembling hands in her lap, not because she was embarrassed of herself, but because kindness always felt heavier when it arrived unexpectedly. She asked him quietly why he had chosen to sit with a stranger when he clearly had no idea who she was. Rowan responded not with long explanations, but with a calm smile that carried its own language, the kind that said, "No one deserves to be alone today." The wedding celebration moved on, but something changed for Mira. For the first time that day, She wasn't watching life from the sidelines. She listened to Kira's cheerful babbling, watched Rowan gently wipe her hands whenever she touched the chocolate fountain, and she found herself letting go of some of the weight she had been holding on to. She told Rowan a little about the wedding, the decorations she helped design, the months of planning. She didn't mention the heartbreak that left her alone here, but Rowan didn't push. He seemed to sense that her silence carried a story. That Myra's family eventually noticed the trio sitting together and stared with confusion, even disapproval. They whispered among themselves, surprised that Mira had found company when they had expected her to simply stay out of the way. Their glances stung her, but this time she didn't shrink under them. Something about having people at her table, even strangers, gave her back a fragment of dignity she thought she had lost forever. Rowan leaned toward Kira, pointing to the bride as she walked by, and Mira realized she hadn't smiled like this since before her heartbreak. She finally felt the sunlight on her skin instead of the shadows around her. When the time came for group photos, Mira hesitated, expecting to be excluded or told to stay behind. But Rowan gently nudged her and told her she should be in them because she was part of the family celebration too. Those words hit her deeper than he knew. She hadn't felt part of anything in a long time. She stood in the photos with Rowan and Kira nearby, and although they weren't related to her, their presence anchored her like family would. Throughout the afternoon, Mira opened up little by little, describing the grief she carried, the breakup that had shattered her confidence, the way her parents had unintentionally made her feel like a burden at her own sister's wedding. Rowan listened with quiet empathy, not judging, not offering rushed solutions, just being there. He shared pieces of his own story, about becoming a single dad after losing the woman he loved, about navigating a world where he constantly felt like he wasn't enough, and how Kira was his anchor when life felt too heavy. Their stories, though different, somehow intertwined like matching wounds healing in the same sunlight. As the wedding drew toward the reception and guests prepared for yet another round of photos and speeches, Rowan noticed Mira looking troubled again. Her family was gathering for a large group picture, and she knew she would be pushed aside or instructed to stand somewhere in the back where she wouldn't ruin the symmetry. The familiar pain began to rise in her chest, but before she could step away, Rowan stood beside her, holding Kira's hand, and positioned himself naturally next to Mira as if it were the most obvious place for him to be. The photographer didn't question it. Neither did the guests. The picture was taken with Mira standing firmly in it. Not hidden, not forgotten, but present. It was in that moment that Mira felt something shift inside her. Maybe kindness didn't always arrive through the people you expected. Maybe sometimes it came from strangers who saw the pain others ignored. The moment stayed with her long after the picture was taken. Later, when the sun softened into a warm afternoon glow, they all sat together again. Kira fell asleep on Rowan's shoulder, and Mira watched them silently, admiring the kind of resilience Rowan carried. She felt grateful, deeply grateful, for the unexpected comfort he had offered. When the ceremony transitioned into dances, Rowan told Mira she deserved to enjoy the celebration. She